Cappadocia, from ancient Greek, Kappa Alpha Pi Pi Alpha Delta Omicron Kappa Iota Alpha, from Old Persian, Cappadocia, is a historical region in central Anatolia, largely in the Nevşehir, Kayseri, Aksaray, and Niğde provinces in Turkey. In ancient Greek, Kappa Alpha Pi Pi Alpha Delta Omicron she means a Cappadocian. In the time of Herodotus, the Cappadocians were reported as occupying the whole region from Mount Taurus to the vicinity of the Euxine. Cappadocia, in this sense, was bounded in the south by the chain of the Taurus Mountains that separate it from Cilicia, to the east by the upper Euphrates and the Armenian highland, to the north by Pontus, and to the west by Lycaonia and eastern Galatia. The name, traditionally used in Christian sources throughout history, continues in use as an international tourism concept to define a region of exceptional natural wonders, in particular characterized by fairy chimneys and a unique historical and cultural heritage. Etymology. The earliest record of the name of Cappadocia dates from the late 6th century BC, when it appears in the trilingual inscriptions of two early Achaemenid kings, Darius I and Xerxes, as one of the countries of the Persian Empire. In these lists of countries, the Old Turkic name is Kappadag, which means mountain door. Cappadocia could also come from the Luwian language, meaning low country. Herodotus tells us that the name of the Cappadocians was applied to them by the Persians, while they were termed by the Greeks as Syrians, or White Syrians, Leucosyra. One of the Cappadocian tribes he mentions is the Moshoi, associated by Flavius Josephus with the biblical figure Meshech, son of Japheth, and the Mosotini were founded by Mosok, now they are Cappadocians. Aotji 6. Cappadocia appears in the biblical account given in the book of Acts chapter 2 verse 9. The Cappadocians were named as one group hearing the gospel account from Galileans in their own language on the day of Pentecost shortly after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Acts chapter 2 verse 5 seems to suggest that the Cappadocians in this account were God-fearing Jews. See Acts of the Apostles. The region is also mentioned in the Jewish Mishnah, in Ketubot 13:11. Under the later kings of the Persian Empire, the Cappadocians were divided into two satrapies, or governments, with one comprising the central and inland portion, to which the name of Cappadocia continued to be applied by Greek geographers, while the other was called Pontus. This division had already come about before the time of Xenophon, as after the fall of the Persian government the two provinces continued to be separate, the distinction was perpetuated, and the name Cappadocia came to be restricted to the inland province, which alone will be the focus of this article. The kingdom of Cappadocia still existed in the time of Strabo as a nominally independent state. Cilicia was the name given to the district in which his area, the capital of the whole country, was situated. The only two cities of Cappadocia considered by Strabo to deserve that appellation were Caesarea and Tyana, not far from the foot of the Taurus. Geography and climate. Cappadocia lies in central Anatolia, in the heartland of what is now Turkey. The relief consists of a high plateau over 1,000 meters in altitude that is pierced by volcanic peaks, with Mount Tørrissen near Kayseri being the tallest at 3,916 meters. The boundaries of historical Cappadocia are vague, particularly towards the west. To the south, the Taurus Mountains form the boundary with Cilicia and separate Cappadocia from the Mediterranean Sea. To the west, Cappadocia is bounded by the historical regions of Lycaonia to the southwest, and Galatia to the northwest. The Black Sea coastal ranges separate Cappadocia from Pontus and the Black Sea, while to the east Cappadocia is bounded by the upper Euphrates. Before that river bends to the southeast to flow into Mesopotamia and the Armenian highland. This results in an area approximately 400 kilometers east-west and 250 kilometers north-south. Due to its inland location and high altitude, Cappadocia has a markedly continental climate, with hot dry summers and cold snowy winters. Rainfall is sparse and the region is largely semi-arid. History. Cappadocia was known as Hatti in the Late Bronze Age, and was the homeland of the Hittite power centered at Hattusa. After the fall of the Hittite Empire, with the decline of the Syro-Cappadocians after their defeat by the Lydian king Croesus in the 6th century, Cappadocia was ruled by a sort of feudal aristocracy, dwelling in strong castles and keeping the peasants in a servile condition, which later made them apt to foreign slavery. It was included in the Third Persian satrapy in the division established by Darius, but continued to be governed by rulers of its own, none apparently supreme over the whole country, and all more or less tributaries of the great Kingdom of Cappadocia. After ending the Persian Empire, Alexander the Great tried to rule the area through one of his military commanders, but Ariarathes, a Persian aristocrat, somehow became king of the Cappadocians. As Ariarathes I, he was a successful ruler, and he extended the borders of the Cappadocian kingdom as far as to the Black Sea. The kingdom of Cappadocia lived in peace until the death of Alexander. The previous empire was then divided into many parts, and Cappadocia fell to Eumenes. His claims were made good in 322 BC by the regent Perdiccas, who crucified Ariarathes, but in the dissensions which brought about Eumenes' death, Ariarathes II, the adopted son of Ariarathes I, recovered his inheritance and left it to a line of successors, who mostly bore the name of the founder of the dynasty. In the Cappadocian kingdom, whose territory was formerly an Achaemenid possession, Persian colonists, cut off from their co-religionists in Iran proper, continued to practice the faith of their forefathers, and their Strabo, observing them in the 1st century BC, records that these fire kindlers possessed many holy places of the Persian gods, as well as fire temples. Strabo furthermore relates, were noteworthy enclosures, and in their midst there is an altar, on which there is a large quantity of ashes, and where the Magi keep the fire ever burning. Under Ariarathes IV, Cappadocia came into relations with Rome, first as a foe espousing the cause of Antiochus the Great, then as an ally against Perseus of Macedon. The kings henceforward threw in their lot with the Republicans against the Seleucids, to whom they had been from time to time tributary. Ariarathes V marched with the Roman proconsul Publius Licinius Crassus Dives Mucianus against Aristonicus, a claimant to the throne of Pergamon, and their forces were annihilated. The imbroglio which followed his death ultimately led to interference by the rising power of Pontus and the intrigues and wars which ended in the failure of the dynasty. Roman and Byzantine province. The Cappadocians, supported by Rome against Mithridates VI of Pontus, elected a native lord, Ariobarzanes, to succeed, but in the same year Armenian troops under Tigranes the Great entered Cappadocia, dethroned King Ariobarzanes and crowned Gordios as the new client king of Cappadocia, thus creating a buffer zone against the encroaching Romans. It was not until Rome had deposed the Pontic and Armenian kings that the rule of Ariobarzanes was established. In the civil wars, Cappadocia was first for Pompey, then for Caesar, then for Antony, and finally, Octavian. The Ariobarzanes dynasty came to an end. A Cappadocian nobleman Archelaus was given the throne, by favor first of Antony and then of Octavian, and maintained tributary independence until AD 17, when the Emperor Tiberius, who he had angered, summoned him to Rome and reduced Cappadocia to a Roman province. Cappadocia contains several underground cities, largely used by early Christians as hiding places before Christianity became an accepted religion. The underground cities have vast defense networks of traps throughout their many levels. These traps are very creative, including such devices as large round stones to block doors and holes in the ceiling through which the defenders may drop spears. Early Christianity. The Cappadocian Fathers of the 4th century were integral to much of early Christian philosophy. It also produced, among other people, another patriarch of Constantinople, John of Cappadocia, who held office 517 to 520. For most of the Byzantine era it remained relatively undisturbed by the conflicts in the area with the Sassanid Empire, but was a vital frontier zone later against the Muslim conquests. From the 7th century, Cappadocia was divided between the Anatolic and Armeniac themes. In the 9th–11th centuries, the region comprised the themes of Charchanon and Cappadocia. Cappadocia shared an always-changing relationship with neighboring Armenia, by that time a region of the empire. The Arab historian Abu al-Faraj asserts the following about Armenian settlers in Shivas during the 10th century. Shivas, in Cappadocia, was dominated by the Armenians, and their numbers became so many that they became vital members of the imperial armies. These Armenians were used as watchposts in strong fortresses taken from the Arabs. They distinguished themselves as experienced infantry soldiers in the imperial army and were constantly fighting with outstanding courage and success by the side of the Romans, in other words Byzantine. As a result of the Byzantine military campaigns and the Seljuk invasion of Armenia, the Armenians spread into Cappadocia and eastward from Cilicia into the mountainous areas of northern Syria and Mesopotamia, and the Armenian kingdom of Cilicia was eventually formed. This immigration was increased further after the decline of the local imperial power and the establishment of the Crusader states following the Fourth Crusade. To the Crusaders, Cappadocia was Terra Hermeniorum, the land of the Armenians, due to the large number of Armenians settled there. Turkish Cappadocia. Following the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, various Turkish clans under the leadership of the Seljuks began settling in Anatolia. With the rise of Turkish power in Anatolia, Cappadocia slowly became a tributary to the Turkish states that were established to the east and to the west. Some of the population converted to Islam, with the remainder forming the Cappadocian Greek population. By the end of the early 12th century, Anatolian Seljuks had established their sole dominance over the region. With the decline and the fall of the Konya-based Seljuks in the second half of the 13th century, they were gradually replaced by the Karaman-based Belak of Karaman, who themselves were gradually succeeded by the Ottoman Empire over the course of the 15th century. Cappadocia remained part of the Ottoman Empire for the centuries to come, and remains now part of the modern state of Turkey. A fundamental change occurred in between when a new urban center, Nevşehir, was founded in the early 18th century by a Grand Vizier who was a native of the locality, to serve as regional capital, a role the city continues to assume to this day. In the meantime, many former Cappadocians had shifted to a Turkish dialect, and where the Greek language was maintained, it became heavily influenced by the surrounding Turkish. This dialect of Greek is known as Cappadocian Greek. Following the 1923 population exchange between Greece and Turkey, the language is now only spoken by a handful of the former population's descendants in modern Greece. Modern tourism. The area is a popular tourist destination, as it has many areas with unique geological, historic, and cultural features. Touristic Cappadocia includes 4 cities: Nevşehir, Kayseri, Aksaray and Niğde. The region is located southwest of the major city Kayseri, which has airline and railway service to Ankara and Istanbul and other cities. The most important towns and destinations in Cappadocia are Ergup, Gormi, Ilara Valley, Selim, Gazaliut, Uçhisar, Avanos and Zelv. Among the underground cities worth seeing are Derinkuyu, Kaymakli, Gazimir and Ozkanak. The best historic mansions and cave houses for tourist stays are in Ergup, Gormi, Gazaliut and Uçhisar. Hot air ballooning is very popular in Cappadocia, and is available in Gormi. Trekking is enjoyed in Ilara Valley, Monastery Valley, Ergup and Gormi. Sedimentary rocks formed in lakes and streams and ignimbrite deposits that erupted from ancient volcanoes approximately 9 to 3 million years ago. During the late Miocene to Pliocene epochs, underlie the Cappadocia region. The rocks of Cappadocia near Gormi eroded into hundreds of spectacular pillars and minaret-like forms. People of the villages at the heart of the Cappadocia region carved out houses, churches and monasteries from the soft rocks of volcanic deposits. Gormi became a monastic center in 300–1200 AD. The first period of settlement in Gormi goes back to the Roman period. The use of Koch, Ortahani, Dermiskadir and Bezirane churches in Gormi, and houses and churches carved into rocks in the Uzundara, Bagilda and Zemi valleys all illustrate history and can be seen today. The complex contains more than 30 carved from rock churches and chapels, some having superb frescoes inside, dating from the 9th century to the 11th century. Mesothelioma. In 1975, a study of 3 small villages in central Cappadocia, Tuskoi, Karain and Sarahide, found that peritoneal mesothelioma was causing 50% of all deaths. Initially, this was attributed to Erionite, a zeolite mineral with similar properties to asbestos. But detailed epidemiological investigation demonstrated that the substance causes the disease mostly in families with a genetic predisposition to mineral fiber carcinogenesis. The studies are being extended to other parts of the region. Media. The area was featured in several films due to its topography. The 1983 Italian, French, Turkish film Yor, The Hunter from the Future was filmed in Cappadocia. The region was used for the 1989 science fiction film Slipstream to depict a cult of wind worshippers. In 2010 and early 2011, the film Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance was also filmed in the Cappadocia region. Pier Paolo Pasolini's Medea, based on the plot of Euripides' Medea, was filmed in Gormi open-air museums, early Christian churches. Turkish model and actress Azra Akin took part in a commercial for a chewing gum called First Ice. The commercial shows some of the area's features. In Assassin's Creed Revelations, Cappadocia is an underground city in Turkey which is dominated by Templars. In the tabletop role-playing game Vampire: The Masquerade, Cappadocian is an extinct clan of vampires based around Mount Tørrissen. Of recent note, winter landscapes and broad panoramas of Cappadocia are prominent in the cinematography of Winter Sleep, the 2014 film directed by Nuri Bilge Ceylan, which won the Palme d'Or at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival. Sports. Since 2012, a multi-day track running ultramarathon of desert concept, called Run Fire Cappadocia Ultramarathon, is held annually in July. The race tours 244 kilometers in 6 days through several places across Cappadocia, reaching out to Lake Tuz. Gallery. Mount Ursius, the highest mountain in Cappadocia. The town Gormi with rock houses in front of the spectacularly colored valleys nearby. A rock-cut temple in Cappadocia. Fairy chimneys in Cappadocia. A house in Cappadocia. Cappadocian Greeks in traditional clothing. Gormi. Gormi in winter. Urgup. Panoramic view of Babayan under snow. Ibrahim Pasa village. The bridge. Kameklai underground city.